Time for a Chevrolet Sportsnet Central update. Steph Curry suffered sprain from his collision with Marcus Smart last night. The good news for Golden State is Curry is expected to return for the start of the playoffs. Now, while people in Boston loved the hustle by Smart on that play, people in the Bay Area, like Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, were less than thrilled.
I thought it was a dangerous play. I thought Marcus dove into Steph's knee, and that's what I was upset about. A lot of respect for Marcus. He's a hell of a player, gamer, competitor. I coached him in the World Cup a few summers ago. We talked after the game. We're good, but I thought it was a dangerous play, and just let him know.
I know who I am. My teammates and the players and my colleagues, they know I'm not a dirty player. They know I'm going to go out there and leave everything I have on the floor for my team, and I'm a hustle. And that's just what it is. Unfortunately, when you're doing that, things happen in basketball, in any sport, or anything, and injury happens, and that's just what it is.
Maybe unnecessary, but that's the most I can call it, unnecessary. But I can't call it a dirty play. The ball's on the floor. At every level of basketball, we're taught to dive on the floor and go after the ball. And that's what Marcus did. So I can't call it a dirty play.
All right, let's kick off the daily thread right there, talking about the Celtics. We have Eddie House with us. He, of course, is filling in for the next couple of nights over on Celtics pre- and post-game live, and, of course, played for the Celtics on that 2008 championship team. Eddie, when you look at that play from Marcus Smart, I think we look at it and go, well, that's just Marcus Smart, right? That's a hustle play. But from an NBA set of eyes, was it a dirty play?
No, not dirty at all. It was exactly what it was. It was a hustle play. And it's easy to, if you're on the other side of the coin, right, and you're looking and you're like, my star player got hurt. I don't think you have the same cry if it was somebody like Damian Lee who turned his ankle and it happened with Marcus Smart, or if it was Kevin Looney. I don't think guys would have people would have gotten such an uproar if it was a player like that. But because it was Steph Curry, it was his ankle, and he's had ankle problems, ankle history issues. So I think with that is the reason why everybody is kind of like, oh, my God, it was a dirty play. But if you are a real hoop head, a basketball, if you understand basketball, the first one to the floor. That's why you always have to be the first one to the floor, just in case you don't want your legs to get taken out, your knees to get taken out. You got to get out there. It was just a great hustle play. At the end of the day, it was a winning play. And that's what they did last night. They went out there and won. And I think that play right there is taken away from exactly what everybody should be talking about, is how serious can these Celtics be taken into the playoffs? Are they a real contender? They went out there and they showed that they should be in the conversation for representing the Eastern Conference, at least, to get an opportunity to get there, to get a chance to play in the finals. Excellent defense last night, and it started with Marcus Smart.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to follow up on that, because when I hear dangerous play, I just think of youth soccer, right? Like, you're not allowed to kick the ball when you're out on the ground. Like, dangerous play. I heard you say last night, too, on the postgame show that was kind of Steve Kerr maybe walking it back a little bit, where he said, oh, it's a dangerous play. He didn't call it a dirty play. But the Draymond Green wording of it there, calling it unnecessary. What does he mean there by saying it's unnecessary, that you don't need to dive after the ball there in the second quarter? It's strange to me coming from Draymond Green, who is a guy who sells out on every play.
Yeah, he's the same type of player as Marcus Smart, a guy that's going to get after it. He's going to get on the ground. He's going to play hard. He's going to set hard screens. And a lot of times when you have really, really good defenders, they do any and everything to get an edge. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be dirty to get that edge, but they really do any and everything to get an edge, be it a push, be it a shove, be it a hold, be it a grab, okay? And when Steve Kerr said it was a dangerous play, think about when you got somebody that's 6'8" coming down the lane full speed and going up to dunk on you, you take the charge. You have a chance to flop him down. But if it's a charge, that's a great play. Right. Great play by the defender taking the charge. So you can't pick and choose when it's a dangerous play and when it's not suitable for your team and it doesn't go in your team's way. But Draymond, I just think that at the end of the day, at the end of the game, it was because Curry. It was Curry. If it was anybody else, I don't think we're having this conversation. But because it was Curry, everybody's looking at it a little bit deeper. It was a basketball play, and things happen on the basketball court.
Well, you said, too, that was great defense, and it was spearheaded by Marcus Smart. Our Chris Forsberg actually wrote about that today on NBC Sports Boston.com. He said he's less focused on the play and more on that play and more focused on his overall play, being Smart's overall play. He says, here's what should be in the spotlight. Smart is spearheading the defense for a Celtics team with the best defensive rating in the NBA at 105.5. Since Smart returned on January 23rd, that number dips to 101.7, which is 5.2 points per 100 possessions better than the next closest rival in that span. Routinely tasked with defending the opposing team's most dangerous threats, Smart is holding opponents to 44.9% shooting. And he mentions in that article that maybe, and Jason Tatum said it last night as he was walking off the court when Abby was interviewing him, Defensive Player of the Year. Is that what we should be focusing on with Marcus Smart? Not the play, but how he plays defense. And is he a legitimate Defensive Player of the Year candidate?
No doubt. I think he's in that conversation. You got to think with the ability that he has on the defensive end. He always takes the best offensive player that the other team has that's on the perimeter, okay? He can do that. Then if he gets switched off to a big, he's able to guard that big in the post without any help. Most of the time, if you're a really good perimeter defender, you need help in that post. But what he does, he has the ability to make sure that he does his work early. So if he gets switched off in the post, he's working already. He knows he's getting switched off in the post, and he's working. He doesn't allow him to get to his spot. Once they get to their spot, they had to work to their spot. Now they got to work to try to get the shot off. And I think that's where the difference is with him, lies with him. There is no weakness in his defensive game. He could guard the perimeter, and if he has to guard a big, he can guard the big without you coming and doubling. So I think we should make a hard push for him to be Defensive Player of the Year. You don't want to – because Rob Williams has been playing well too, right? He's been protecting the rim, but I don't think you want to split those votes. I think if you're going to pick one, we got to pick with it and run with it and try to campaign for him as hard as possible.
Yeah, Trenni, you brought up after the game, you had Jason Tatum coming over there, and he was campaigning for Marcus Smart when he Defensive Player of the Year, and you kind of feel like this group is coming together. I know that early in the season we talked about, is there tension there? Is there tension between Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? When you see the way they're fitting together and the way that this group is kind of improving, not just on the floor, but it seems to be off the floor as well, did they feel like they have some of those championship components, maybe that you even saw with the 2008 team, although you guys were a much more veteran team? Are you starting to see some of the similarities there?
Well, I think what I see is a team coming together, and that's number one. If you have a team that they all really fight for each other, and they fight for the coach. They believe in the coach's message. And the top guy is yelling the coach's message, and the bottom guy is hearing that, and everybody comes together. That's what I'm seeing right now. I'm seeing a team that early on in the season is a brand-new coach, brand-new philosophy, brand-new offensive scheme, brand-new defensive scheme, okay? It's going to take time for that to mesh. Then on top of that, you had guys in protocol. You guys had guys that were injured. So you never really had an opportunity to bring it all together. They have been bringing it all together since – I want to say the end of January, right before All-Star break. They started playing really well, started putting everything together, understanding what everybody's roles are, and guys buying into it. And then health playing a big issue in it. And right now, I mean, there's not a better defensive team out there. I mean, the way that they can switch, and most of the time when you switch, there is a mismatch somewhere that you could take advantage of. There really isn't a mismatch that you could take advantage of.
Yeah, good stuff, Giles. We'll let you take a little breather before we talk some more football, because when the Celtics were not beating up the Warriors, they were blowing them out. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown each scoring 26 points en route to the Celtics' 22-point victory. And last night's win was not an isolated incident. Here's how the Warriors have fared at home since the 2014 season against the Celtics. They're just 2-6 against the rest of the NBA. They are 233-71. Thanks to Sean Grandy, by the way, for that stat. So the Celtics have really owned them, and it is not typical. John Tomasi, by the way, Eddie, if you don't know John, if you're not familiar with his work, he's usually our Red Sox reporter, but the Red Sox are so pathetic right now, and he's such a big basketball fan that we brought him in to talk about basketball instead. Tomasi, what was your biggest takeaway from the game last night? I know you love this game and said it was wildly entertaining in a text to me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Trenni, first of all, there was 7:30 clubhouse today for the Red Sox. I stayed up to watch that whole thing last night because it was compelling. And what jumped out at me was the Celtics, and we've seen a lot of this during this winning streak, particularly recently. They exerted their will on one of the best teams in the NBA on their home floor. And if that doesn't tell you that this team is a legitimate contender in the East, I don't know what does. We've seen them beat Brooklyn. We've seen them beat Memphis. We've now seen them beat Golden State. I understand that Curry missed most of the game, but while he was in there, they had 20 points midway through the second quarter. That was the Celtics defense locking them down. That is something you can hang your hat on. And like Eddie was saying earlier, there's no real weakness when they switch. There's no obvious guy, other than when Peyton Pritchard is in there maybe. There's no obvious guy to target. They're the real thing, and I would never have envisioned myself saying that 2 months ago.
If they are the real thing, Eddie, we were talking off camera that you think there are 5 teams in the NBA, the Celtics being one of them, the others being the Nets, the Bucks, the Heat, and the Sixers. Tomasi said to us today in a note, I want the Celtics to face the Nets because I think they could outmuscle them and beat them and they would match up well. Do you agree with John Tomasi over there down in Fort Myers, or do you say, be careful what you wish for because the Nets, Brooklyn's pretty darn good?
Yeah, you don't want to poke the bear. You don't want to poke the bear, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to go through them anyway. I would like to not have to see them in the first round. Looking at the team, if we could get to the 3rd seed, we could possibly play a team like Cleveland or the Raptors, and you'll be at home. You have the first 2 games at home. I think that is how you want to walk into the playoffs after playing really well. Then you have some time off, and then you could get back to what you do against those type of teams. I don't think you want to see off rip a team like Chicago is going to be tough. They got 2 guys that are dogs that could come downhill, that could put up a lot of numbers. They got Lonzo Ball. They're getting healthy. And then if you want to talk about the Brooklyn Nets, we all know what they are. And if we're going to have home court advantage, well, it's going to be Kyrie and KD. And so, again, and those 2 guys are playing extremely well at this particular moment. So I would be careful about poking that bear. Let's see them somewhere down the road. We're going to eventually have to see them, but not the first round.
Yeah, here's what I mean by that. I want to see what they can do to Brooklyn playing the way they are now. Maybe it's a Boston thing where we watched Kyrie quit on the team his last year here and then leave the team in the lurch, and credit to them for overcoming that. But I would like to see a Celtics team playing this kind of physical, aggressive, like I said, exerting their will style of basketball on Kyrie. How does he respond? Because we've seen it here. He does have a tendency to quit. Even Kevin Durant, as great as he was in that game, 38 points or whatever, getting outdueled by Tatum in the end, does he want 7 games of the kind of defense that he faced? Yes, he is an amazing scorer. He's an incredible individual performer. He had to work for every point in that game. Does he want to do that for 7 games? If you're going to have to face them anyway, I want to see what the Celtics can do against that team.
I'm with you. I want to see it too, but in the conference finals or the second round, just not the first round.
I'm fine with that.
Let him get a little warmed up.
Yeah.
Let him get a little warmed up before they have to take on the Nets.